Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special top 10 list. This was kind of pulled right out of the ether just because I'm riding that high from the Wonder Man announcement. And so while I had other things I was planning on doing for this week, this kind of just stepped in. So this week we are going to be talking about my top 10 cards that I'm going to be adding to Wonder Man out of Aspect. So if anyone is kind of behind on the trend, I understand that it was only announced last week, but Wonder Man's deck building allows him to add events that have energy resources on them from out of Aspect, which means that suddenly, I don't want to say that that is a incredible deck building thing. I think it's really interesting because I think it's going to recontextualize some stuff. Like suddenly you can be in aggression and you're like, oh, but there's like these leadership or protection cards that like I might not have considered, but now I might consider because they can play a different role for this deck. And so that's exactly what today's going to be. It's just me going down the list of, I want to say there's like 75 cards that match this, that are not basic, that are in some kind of aspect, they're not hero pack cards, that are viable for this as at the time of recording, which is before Civil War comes out. I'm having an honorable mention this week because I do think that Spoiling for a Fight is an interesting card, but I don't know that it's going to fit what Wonder Man's trying to do very well. So that's why I fell outside of the top 10. Spoiling for a Fight is a zero-cost event with the hero action. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a minion. Put that minion into play, engage with you, ready your hero. So yes, this has a lot of prospects for it. It's possible that you might be able to thwart with Wonder Man, then do this, ready him back up, and that's one more card tucked under his permanent card. I think it's Ionic Physiology, that you'll be able to then add to his attack and make a bigger attack, or maybe against that minion you just picked up. Like there are versions of this that's going to be helpful. My gut says that this is not going to be as crucial to what Wonder Man's trying to do as other cards on this list, but it is a card that I think is notable because it is minion summoning, and minion summoning does have its place. If you are in certain scenarios, it's something you can tech around. It's just not one that I would be too concerned with. But let's move into the actual top 10 list proper, with the first card being my number 10, which is I Got This. It's possibly my first pool card ever mentioned in this series. It is a one-cost event, hero action. If the following icons are on one or more cards in play: Crisis icon, deal 3 damage to an enemy. Acceleration icon, remove 2 threat from a scheme. Amplify icon, ready an ally you control. And hazard icon, draw 1 card. And I think that similarly to Spoiling for a Fight, this is going to have a place when you are kind of metagaming for a scenario. If you know you're going to be playing against a scenario that has a lot of side schemes, that has a lot of just these coming up, if you happen to be playing with somebody who, you know, maybe is in the pool aspect, this is a card that you could add in. It's not the top of my concern, because I do feel like, yes, dealing 3 damage and removing 2 threat from a scheme is always going to be good. Drawing a card is always going to be good. And amplify icons, I feel like, are fairly rare. Maybe I'm just wrong about that. It's only, I haven't really put too much thought into how many icons are spread across the entire game. But ready in an ally might not be as helpful. That might be kind of a do nothing card, but at the same time, this is an event you are playing with purpose, and I do think that it does have a place because it is flexible enough. It will not cause you to need to put in Crisis and Infinite Deadpools into the encounter deck. You're just playing with 1 card, and I think that this does have at least the grounds to be considered. So I'm keeping it in mind as I make my way through my potential Wonder Man deck builds. Moving on to my number 9, we have Bait and Switch, which is a one-cost card. A one-cost event with the Thwart trait and hero action Thwart. The villain attacks you, remove 4 threat from a scheme. And this ranks low, but at the same time, I guess it's still in the top 10 out of roughly 75 cards. And it ranks that way because I do think that, again, there are going to be times when this isn't going to be helpful, depending on what aspect you're in. If you are in like a aspect, if you're in leadership, so you have the ability to have a bunch of allies and everything. And so this is kind of going to be just like chump block and remove 4 threat from a scheme. or if you're in aggression or what have you. Like this can be a good way to remove threat in a aspect or in just a general build that isn't really good at taking a lot of threat off of the main scheme. And so I'm keeping it in mind. It's not the forefront of my mind, but it's definitely a card that I haven't used in a while. But now in this new context, it makes me go, oh, would having 2 or 3 copies of this in a aggression deck be helpful? Or I guess you're already in protection, so it's not like you're going to be pulling it into protection to go, oh, I'm already doing perfect defense. Let me defense even better. I guess the other thing is that this list is also comprised of cards that will be going on to your physiology. And so that is another thing to consider. But when we're looking at it from out of aspect, I do think that there are going to be applications for this card. Maybe not the most forefront of the mind, but I think this is going to be one that I'm definitely going to be keeping in mind. And it's one of those cards that I think I might be underestimating, and it might a year from now or 6 months from now when we've had more time with Wonder Man, or any time with Wonder Man, I suppose, I will deeply consider it being a better card than I even give it credit for. But right now it just reads like a card that I want to give more attention to, that has kind of just fallen out of my general focus, just because it's a card that I don't think about a lot, and kind of just became just a filler in my collection, and I'm hoping that maybe it can break free of that status. Next up is my number 8, which is Aerial Intervention. It is a 0-cost event with the aerial trait and interrupt. When a character would take any amount of damage from an attack, exhaust an aerial character you control, prevent up to 3 of that damage. So similar to Bombs Away, which in my my video where I talked about the Wonder Man article, it just completely went over my head that Bombs Away is a reprint. I could see this being a reprint in the Wonder Man deck, and hopefully that's good, because I think it's going to be a good choice. If you are out of aspect, a 0-cost event out of aspect is probably going to be really helpful, and especially because we already have the aerial trait, this is going to mean that we have the ability to kind of double. Actually, this probably won't be a reprint now that I think about it, because Stronger Together is already kind of filling this slot. But I think that having a little bit of redundancy is going to be important. Or if you're playing in a deck that doesn't share a lot of traits and you just want to use aerial to your advantage, this is going to be a card that I think is going to be super helpful. As well as in that case, if you're using aerial to your advantage, then it's probably a trait that's overlapping. But either way, this could even just be your 4th copy of Stronger Together, just in its kind of utility. I think that this is another one of those overlooked cards that now just gains additional context, should be helpful, and is definitely one that I'm going to be keeping my mind on. Moving into my number 7, we have another card that's kind of fallen out of favor and that I don't get to use as often as I'd like to, and that is Yaw and Roll, a 1-cost event with the aerial and thwart trait. Play only if your identity has the aerial trait. Excellent. And hero response thwart. After your hero thwarts, remove 3 threat from a scheme. So this is just a nice way to spread out your ability to thwart. 2 is good. He has a thwart of 2, which is already in a good place. But I think just being able to spread out your thwarting a little bit more as just a utility. Again, this might be a good 1 or 2 of in a deck. And again, all these cards are adding to your Ionic physiology. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is this is only going to be making your attack stronger. And healing you up additionally. I kind of forget about that, but it's also going to be healing you up. Thwart, remove 2 threat from here, remove 3 threat from here, heal a damage. Like, that's just giving you longevity. And I think that this is a card that will be good if, hypothetically, there is a card in Wonder Man's kit that doesn't itself want you to overpay for it, but just says when you overpay for something, do something. This is a good candidate for that, because it only costs 1. So suddenly that energy, that basic energy that just gives you energy is going to suddenly overpay for this, give you whatever that hypothetical bonus would be, and be a good card just for what you're trying to do. That said, that's hypothetical. I don't know if that card actually exists. It'd be a good called shot if it does, but this is just a card that I feel like could move down in the list, just because some of the other cards I've already mentioned I think have untapped potential that maybe will prove me wrong. But for right now, I think this is a good card. I don't see it going up on the list. I think that it has its limited applicability, but at the same time, I have high hopes that maybe this will be a card that we are considering with Wonder Man. Moving on to my number 6, we have the 1-cost event Repose, which is a defense traded event with the hero interrupt of when your hero defends against an attack, it gets +2 defense for that attack. If you take no damage, deal 3 damage to the attacking enemy. Which I think is in a good place because if you're out of aspect, this suddenly gives you 5 defense and a way to deal 3 damage during the villain phase. I think that's pretty good. And additionally, I already think this is a good card, and so I think the fact that we're able to use it out of aspect is going to be doing us a lot of good. Now, granted, if you're not in protection, you might not be valuing defending that much. At the same time, I think that because of the way that Ionic physiology works, it's possible that Wonder Man is going to kind of be stretching to try to get a good attack stat. So if you're in aggression, yes, you can add in +1 attack stuff. I'm really disappointed because when I first thought about this card, I remember thinking, oh, it's any energy, and it's not. It has to be an event. But if it was any energy, then you could add the Triskelion, and suddenly an aggression deck has an additional ally slot. I thought that sounded really cool. Above that, I didn't even get into like allies. With this, I think that there are going to be versions of decks that are going to be able to take advantage of 5 defense pretty well. And when we're able to mix and match stuff, yes, right now protection is the place for make a defense. If you don't take any damage, deal damage equal to your defense, or etc. But I think that going forward, if there are more cards in other aspects outside of protection that don't necessarily care about you taking no damage, but just want to take advantage of a high defense, that could be really strong. And I hope this is going to be a card that just really has legs going forward, because I already like it, and I would love to be able to play it out of aspect. Next up, we are moving to my number 5, which is You Got This. So we already had I Got This, now it's You Got This. A 1-cost event out of leadership with the tactic trait. It has a hero response of after you exhaust your hero to make a basic thwart or attack, discard an ally you control, add that ally's matching power to your hero's power for this use, ready your hero. So we have this, we have the leadership card that came out of the preview article, and so we're going to be able to use both of those cards because it was highlighted because it is a energy resource card. We're going to have both of those cards on hand to be able to play them out of aspect. So suddenly we have aggression, or we have justice, that are going to be able to take those inherently good stats on those allies and make them even better. And in the case of the card, and I'll have it up on the screen, that kind of pairs this out of his kit, that goes both ways. We're going to be able to add the natural thwarting that Wonder Man has to allies, and we're going to be able to take good stats from allies and give them to Wonder Man. And I just think that this might be a situation where you just have you have 2 of both of these cards, and you're able to basically be very flexible with what you're doing. I think it's also interesting because that means that we are leaning towards a non-leadership deck that is ally heavy. And that's already something that kind of exists, but now you're going to actually have payoffs for it in Wonder Man. And so my hope is that this will just make for a really cool cross-aspect deck, and kind of a cross-aspect archetype that will be pretty much directly tied to Wonder Man. It's entirely possible that when you sit here and kind of like look at it, Wonder Man and Spider-Woman might share an awful lot of design space at the same time. Rise of Red Skull is not always going to be a product that's going to be available, and Wonder Man, in theory, should be available through hopefully like 2028. But either way, I'm excited for this card. I'm hoping that it will just be a good addition. Like I said, I think it will make for a good archetype, and even just in a leadership deck, I'm excited just for what those 2 cards can do together. But let's move on to my number 4, which is Even the Odds, a 2-cost event out of Justice. It has the thwart trait and a requirement of energy. We have a lot of those. And a hero action of remove 1 per player threat from each side scheme. Deal 1 damage to the villain for each side scheme defeated this way. Obviously, this is going to get better in multiplayer, and in single player, it's not going to be as good. But I think that this card, outside of Justice, being able to be used in other places, is going to be so great. I have tried this out before with Gamora and had really good results. It feels very strong when you're able to just I mean, especially with Gamora, she has an upgrade that gives you a wild, so you're able to meet this requirement. But just being able to have this as a card to kind of fall back on. Obviously, Wonder Man is introducing a card that is very applicable to even the odds. But I think that even if we're looking at it from a current standpoint, you're going to have both of these cards around. Thwarting is going to be really interesting when you are playing with that limited card pool. When you move it up to the entire expanded card pool and you just got everything, I also think that this is just going to be a card that is going to add so much to what Wonder Man is capable of doing, while also, it has a requirement for a resource that we already are going to be very heavy on. So it almost doesn't matter. It's not applicable to us. And yeah, my hope is that just in an aggression deck, in a protection deck, this is going to be a card that will definitely have a slot or two and be advantageous for us. Moving on to my number 3, I'm excited because this is not a card that I would have expected was going to ever really kind of fall back into my into favor for me, and that is Push Ahead, a 3-cost event, Thwart, with a requirement of Genius, which means we're going to need to be a little creative with how we're going to manage that because we are so energy resource focused. Has the hero action with Thwart: exhaust your hero and remove threat from a scheme equal to the total of your hero's thwart, attack, and defense. Now, because we're using the Ionic Physiology, this is possibly a card that's going to not be able to get tucked under it because you already plan to have 3 cards to best use this. But when you suddenly take all of your stats, you've got 2 and 4, 2, and suddenly you just remove 8 threat from a scheme, I think that's really good. I think that's going to be really interesting, and it makes for a card that I already wanted to make work, but now might have a way out of aspect to really make that shine. And so I have high hopes for this. I hope that it actually is a card that is able to remove 7 or 8 threat from a scheme for 1 card and really just shine, especially, again, as the theme is with this entire thing, out of aspect. This is not going to be in leadership. This is a situation where you can use we're already seeing that there are going to be new cards that bump up one of your stats, along with, I think, give you 3 health. And when you're in the other aspects and suddenly you're able to say, hey, I'm bumping up my thwart to 3 in Justice. This can suddenly remove 8 to 9 threat. Like, that seems great. And my hope is that this is the kind of card that's really going to shine, that's really going to take a new focus and really kind of gain a new life from Wonder Man going forward. Next up, we have one of the cards I'm most excited about because I don't think about this card very often, and that is my number 2, which is Avengers Assemble, a 4-cost event, max 1 per round, with the hero action of ready each Avenger character you control until the end of the phase. Each Avenger character in play gets +1 thwart, +1 attack. I want this card to be great. I have tried to play with this card so many times. I remember trying to put together a Thor's Avengers deck with the limited card pool that I had. I think that actually recently we've seen a lot of good cards that make a leadership Thor deck really shine, and this is the kind of card that's just too expensive for Thor, but I think that in the right place, that being Wonder Man, I have a lot of high hopes for this. He's already an Avenger, so he's going to be getting readied back up by this, but then if you fill the rest of your deck with Avengers, not only can you take advantage of Stronger Together as a trait sharing card, but then this just kind of being the card that pushes everything over the top. I think I'm very excited by the prospect that this could be bringing a brand new life to a card that I don't blame anybody if they have not thought about. If you had this card and it immediately went into your collection and just didn't come back out, I don't blame you, but I think this might be the time when Wonder Man is really going to bring this a new life, and I have a lot of high hopes for that. But let's talk about what I think is maybe one of the most overlooked cards, one of the easiest to pass up cards, and I think it's just because when you're in Aspect, this is just not going to be a card that you think about a lot. At least I don't. And that is my number 1, which is the protection event Defiance, a 0-cost event with the defense trait and hero interrupt defense. When a boost card on an enemy attacking you would be turned face up, discarded instead. I think that this is going to be a easy staple when you're looking out of Aspect for Wonder Man. This is just a card that all it does is just make it so that you don't have to worry about the boost card. And at 0, this, I think, is just going to be so helpful for situations where you are getting attacked, you are, like in protection, it loses value because you're already kind of prepared to lessen the effects of an attack. But when you're in justice, or when you're in aggression, this is going to be a card that makes it so that you don't really want to be exhausting against attacks. And this just means that okay, Claw is attacking me, I'm only going to see one of these boost cards. Or this character, Black Widow is attacking me, and I know I'm only going to take 2 from this because I'm just going to blank the boost card. And the best part is this doesn't just like keep the encounter, it doesn't keep the card on top of the encounter deck, it discards it. So like if you are playing with Falcon, you know what it's going to be. You just go, okay, I don't want a 3 boost icon, let's just get it discarded. I think Defiance is going to see a new life in the hands of Wonder Man. And that is why it's my number 1. I think it is the card that is going to be the most improved by Wonder Man. And maybe you disagree. Maybe there's a card that I listed on here that you're just like, no, this is the most improved card for Wonder Man. But let me know in the comments. That is my top 10 list. I'm excited for Wonder Man. I'm more excited than I thought I was going to be. But now that I know what he does, I am just kind of like brewing in the back of my mind of like, okay, what can I do with this? What does a deck that relies heavily on energy look like? And yeah, I'm just excited, and I hope that you are excited as well. But until next time, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and you are doing great. Keep it up.